Hello, my name is Samuel George London, and welcome to Comics for the Apocalypse. On today's episode, I speak to comic book podcaster and delightful human being Tom Stewart about what comics he would take into the apocalypse. But before we get into it, if you enjoy the show today, please leave a review for us on iTunes or whichever podcast service you use, as not only will it let me know that you liked it, but I believe that it helps others aware of the show as well. Now, without further ado, on with the show. Hello, Tom Stewart. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm not too bad, not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, mate.
Good.
How's the new year been treating you?
Yeah, good. Just getting little bits and bobs done. I'm constantly out walking dogs in my spare times and my job, so I'm always taking in the fresh air for the new year. So that's a plus. I'm
Yeah.
definitely crossing some New Year's resolutions off that way.
That's awesome. And the Scottish winter isn't too harsh this year, or
It's not been too bad. We're pretty close to the water, so we don't really see a lot of the snow or anything down this way. So
right?
it's just more been heavy frost, but yeah, not too bad. It's been all right.
Excellent. Well, firstly, thanks for coming on to Comics for the Apocalypse.
Oh, no bother, man. The show's been absolutely fantastic. I've really enjoyed listening to all the episodes so far, and thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's quite all right. And for any listeners out there that don't know what you do in the world of comics, what do you do in the world of comics?
Well, I try my very best to do a podcast with my friends called That Comic Smell, and
Very fun podcast at
thank you very much, sir.
that. It's quite all right.
We just kind of we get together and chat comics. I mean, we're kind of five like-minded folks who met at a comics book group in the Dundee Library, and we just kind of gravitated towards doing our own kind of thing. We were meeting up in that group, and then that group kind of stopped after a wee while after the guy that was running it left the library, and we just kind of started meeting up on our own and getting together and chatting comics. And then I don't know, it kind of naturally happened. I wanted to do a podcast, and we wanted to just continue talking comics, and we just kind of turned the mic on, and that was it.
Amazing. So do you actually physically get together, or are you Skyping, or?
We all physically get together, so it's
Yeah, it
sometimes
is.
quite difficult getting everybody in the same room.
Amazing.
But it is good. We just kind of email back and forward, get a date set, and set up the topic and get talking. But yeah, it's been great, and the response has been absolutely fantastic. I didn't expect anything, like kind of just putting it out there, and there's been a lot of people supporting us and whatnot, and sharing us about and giving us a listen, which is the main thing.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's been really good. It's been fantastic. But it's just great getting together with my friends and chatting comics.
That's great, isn't it? And yeah, if you can kind of help share what you're saying elsewhere, then
Yeah,
it's a total bonus, really, isn't it? It's amazing the world we live in now, really.
yeah.
That we're kind of all able to do that. And I assume people can just kind of search in whichever podcast service they use that comic smell, and then it will come up.
Yeah, we just recently went on Spotify within the past couple of weeks as well. So I
Great.
think we're now basically on every single place that you can get podcasts by the looks of things. I think YouTube
Fantastic.
I think YouTube's the only one where we're behind, and that's because putting a picture to the podcast takes hours to render. So I've just ended up falling behind on them. But you can get the audio for every one of them on like say Podbean and all those kind of apps, and obviously SoundCloud where we put them up, and Spotify. So yeah, and you just type in that comic smell in Google, and it's the first thing that comes up. So
Awesome. And then you're on the Twitters and the Facebooks and all that jazz
yes,
as well, right?
yeah, I just set up the Facebook not that long ago. So there's only been kind of episode updates and when it's been going up. There's not really much activity there, but we're certainly very active across on Twitter. I'm always on the Twitter daily, and Instagram as well. We're across on Instagram as well at That Comic Smell on both of them.
Perfect. Well, without further ado, I have a little bit of bad news for you. There's been a zombie outbreak, basically. There are dead people eating live people that are turning into dead people. And you've got to deal with it. So what do you do?
Well, I am well prepped for this situation, sir.
Awesome.
I have always been prepped for this situation.
Good.
Very long nights in the pub and a couple of pints in, and it tends to gravitate towards the old conversation of what will you do if X happens. Even down to the point of buying Max Brooks' Zombie Survival Guide and various other zombie comics over the years.
I've come across that.
yeah. But yeah, basically, I'm from a little seaside town, and we have a castle in our town. So I will be making my way towards that castle and taking the drawbridge out and barricading myself in.
Nice.
But not before. We've got an army base just down, I think about sort of 10 miles down the road. I think I might try and rifle that for some equipment.
For some resources.
Yeah, definitely. I'm well prepped.
Too right. And getting all the food that you need as well.
Yes. It's well, basically our plan of action is there's a duffel bag at the ready. There's a bunch of gear in the duffel bag. There's a bunch of rations. We don't actually have this. This is just what we've planned out.
What you will have.
Yeah, what we will have. And then hitting the base, stealing a Land Rover, a couple of guns, smash into the castle, take the drawbridge out, and just wait it out, and hope to hell that it's a slow zombie virus and not a World War Z type running zombie virus.
Yeah, and 28 days later, they're like absolutely legging it after you. That's really scary.
I watched Dead Set and thought, I think I'd probably be done for if that were the case, if they were going for it.
Yeah, that's for sure. That is a great program, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
Isn't it? Cool. So you and your mates, I assume,
yes,
and your family have made it to this castle. You barricaded yourselves in. You've got kind of all of the armory from the local army base, as well as plenty of food. And one night you're all gathering around the fire, just to keep warm, and the subject of comics does come up, and the first question that's asked is, what's the first comic you remember enjoying?
Well, coming from Dundee, obviously I grew up with the Beano and the Dandy, like anybody else probably in and around the UK, but so much so here, with having been the sort of home of D.C. Thompson. And I always had sort of Commandos and that just around the corner, but one that actually sticks in my mind, and we still have to this day, is Shuggy and Dougie Take One, by, is it Tom Bullimore and Kev White? But it's just like these strips of these two Scottish guys, and they live over the wall from two English sort of looking cavemen dudes. Do you know what? It's probably, when looking back on it, it's probably borderline racist in a lot of the different bits. The strip.
Friendly rivalry, maybe.
Yeah, probably. That's how they like to put it anyway. Yeah. But I remember just looking at it as a kid and just being totally enamored with these guys in these kind of kilted get-ups, and them going about in the Highlands, and their neighbours with the bowler hats, and the sort of they've got like fur sort of attire on, basically, and just kind of their mishaps and everything out in the Highlands. But I don't actually know if it was in like a newspaper or something. But I just always had this book at hand. My dad had it in his. He always had it sitting on the bedside table. So I'm assuming he just always read it from here, sort of from time to time. But yeah, it's the first one that I can remember actually.
What age do you think you were? Like, kind of first picked it up.
From when my first sort of memories came about, so probably like 3 or 4, something like that.
Oh wow!
But yeah, it was always there, and we always had, like, I think my gran and my granddad always had a copy of the exact same book in their house as well.
Oh, brilliant!
So it was always there. So it was that, and like
you couldn't escape it.
Yeah, just couldn't escape it. Yeah,
it's like knowing Queen lyrics, you know.
Yeah, basically.
Like, everybody knows Queen lyrics. Like, even if you've never heard a Queen song before, you just know them.
It's very true, very true. But it's always the first one. I mean, everybody sort of says like, it's probably even like my first book. It's the first kind of cover and everything that I can remember is Shuggy and Duggy. I think with it being so Scottish as well, and like you know, you just kind of gravitate towards it with being here, you know. So
nice. And are there any particular moments in Shuggy and Duggy that kind of stand out to you?
There is a strip where they're trying to move, like they're forever trying to move like large objects. I think was it Clive and Trevor, their neighbours, are always trying to move like a boulder off their lawn or move like a club or something like that, and they'll kind of put it over Shuggy and Duggy's wall, and it's always that sort of hijinks of like they'll take it and then just sort of go, oh, what's this, and shove it back over, and it always land on Clive and Trevor or whatever. And it's always those kind of ones that I got. But obviously, being a kid, seeing somebody smacked on a head, I'm just like, oh, amazing.
Classic.
Yeah, it's just the old Tom and Jerry type thing, you know what I mean?
Totally.
But there's a lot of elongated sound bubbles, like whack and crack, and they're always in these big sort of yellow and red massive sort of coloured bubbles that are all spiky out and everything, and it's just very cool. It's the exact thing a kid would go towards, just with the colours and everything.
That's fantastic. And so the conversation naturally moves on to from that first comic you remember enjoying to what's the funniest or comic that made you laugh out loud the most?
I was thinking about this. Like, I can't ever remember actually having a full blown belly laugh, like a proper laugh at a comic. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, there's funny ones, and when you speak about them, like, they're really, really funny. But the one that I can remember actually audibly probably having a good old belly laugh to possibly would have been the Cyanide and Happiness strips. Great. That went out. Well, they're in book form now, but they went out online. I discovered them, I think they did like little sort of Newgrounds animated clips. And then they would always have the links at the bottom saying like buy our books, and I would click on the link and it would sort of take you to the book and go no further. So I remember eventually finding the Explosum website, and it took you to all these different strips of all these Cyanide and Happiness, and it's just, they're really crude, just like the little stick figures of Cyanide and Happiness as sort of titular characters. And just like different situations, but they're kind of that American sort of college humor and quite crass, and they're really funny. Like, so there's 3 or 4 panels, and sometimes they smash out of the panels, and there's all these different situations, but they're just hilarious. I remember one in particular of like, it's a couple having a massive argument, and the guy saying, "Don't let the door hit you on the way out," and it's an actual door smacking the person in the face.
Brilliant, right?
Like, with arms and legs and a big angry face.
Just clocking him on the way out.
He just looks so proud of himself standing there like, yeah, well, I told you, you know. But they're just like, I find them absolutely hilarious. I still read them now, But mainly sort of online. But I do have a couple of the books, but they constantly pump them out. They've always got little animated clips, and they've got like they became massive. They became one of those ones that they've got like plushies and everything now that they do.
Right.
But yeah, aside from that, I can only really think of sort of David from the podcast, David Robertson. He's got a particular strip in his Well Retracted that just I actually was doubled over laughing, and it is him cleaning his house. He's like hoovering, and it's just him sort of saying like how long it takes him to hoover the house, and then he sort of adds up the time of how much it is over the years, and it's just him screaming at the end like, "Is that not enough?" And I just remember like thinking like, "Oh God, like it perfectly encapsulates hoovering, like the most mundane thing, but it's just absolutely."
When will it be enough?
Yeah, basically.
I've
And he's like,
spent several hours of my life hoovering. Why?
he does it. It's perfect 4 panels as well. It's just him idle hoovering, and then the last one just a massive enraged face, like, "Oh my God!" Oh,
I think we can all empathise with that
yeah,
situation. It just gets worse and worse, doesn't it?
yeah,
Throughout life, like when you
it
kind of
does.
get, larger houses and kids and all sorts, just that stuff just accumulates more and more and more. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely on board for that.
Having different dogs coming through the house, it definitely needs a
Yeah.
daily, if not hourly, clean when we're here.
Oh gosh, I bet. Definitely. And so the next question that comes up on this night during the apocalypse is, what's the saddest or most upsetting comic you've read?
Now, it's maybe quite telling that I couldn't think of one that I could laugh at, but I could think of loads that I've had like sad moments. um, but one that stands out for me, and it was one that I remember actually reading it as I was going to bed, and ended up staying up until about 2, 3 in the morning because I was just battering through it.
Wow.
Was The Sculptor by Scott McCloud. Now, I absolutely adore this book, but it has some of the most heart-wrenching pages where you know what's going to happen, but you
Right.
just don't want it to happen, kind of thing. And then when he eventually, when one of the characters in the book lets the main character know what's going to happen, just you've been going through this sort of emotional story with these characters the whole time. So for this big event to happen, it just absolutely kicks you in the stomach. And I just remember sitting there bawling, and trying not to get audible because my other half's sitting sleeping beside me,
Oh,
and I'm
right,
going,
yeah.
"Oh," kind of trying to choke it down. But it's just an absolutely perfect book. Like I love it. It gets quite a lot of hate as well of being like this
Really?
kind of, yeah. I've heard a lot of people kind of go on about it being like, oh, it's one of those books that's sort of more pointed towards like your sort of the Guardian comic reader kind of thing.
Right.
But I just don't get that at all. I mean, Scott McCloud, the man knows how to do comics.
Right.
He's done books on like understanding comics. That's the main tool behind understanding any of the comic medium in general.
Yeah.
And he knows how to write a good story, and oh my God, it's just absolutely unreal. But I mean, like proper sobbing for like
Wow.
a good solid 15 minutes of this book. I absolutely adore it. But just it's heart wrenching, absolutely heart wrenching. But because I came out with absolute loads when I was thinking about it. Like, there's one I can remember picking up in the Dundee Library, and I hadn't even read the rest of the book. I still to this day haven't read the rest of the book, but it's a particular Spider-Man story. I think it's called One More Day, if I remember rightly.
Okay.
but I remember flicking to the page, and it's just him basically saying goodbye to Mary Jane. And
Right.
I just got to that page and standing in the library having to hold back tears just reading that
Oh
one bit,
no.
not having read any of the rest of it, and still not having read any of the rest of it. Yeah, properly sitting there like, oh my God, this is this
Why?
is why is this happening? And I still don't know.
Gosh, yeah, you have to hunt that down.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. But yeah, it's like him properly saying like a heartfelt goodbye to her, and it shows you like all of them. I'm sure it shows in like a big splash page, like all their moments that they've had with each other, where he saved her and they've like held hands and all this kind of stuff. And it's just so emotional. Like looking at the artwork in general, just having flicked it to that page as well, you know. But
I just happened to flick it to that most
yeah, exactly,
emotional peak in the story.
exactly. I'm sure somebody rigged that. I'm telling you.
No doubt, no doubt. And just going back to the sculptor. So what's the setting of that?
Well, I'll read the blurb because I won't be able to do as good a job of this. Dave has given his life for his art, literally. Thanks to a deal with death, the young sculptor gets his childhood wish to sculpt anything he can imagine with his bare hands. But now that he only has 200 days to live, deciding what to create is harder than he thought, and discovering the love of his life at the 11th hour isn't making it any easier. But yeah, it's absolutely heart-wrenching. I remember sort of starting it thinking that it's just going to be a story about a sort of failed sculptor,
Yeah.
and then it just takes such a strange turn, and you're building up these relationships, and it's quite a weighty tome. Like it's a big book, and he takes his time as well to sort of tell the story and get you invested in the characters and get you invested in their lives. You know, you go through a lot of their lives in these sort of last 200 days. And he's speaking to Death, who sort of manifests himself into this old man that sort of is like his friend, you know. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. I mean, Scott McCloud has a good visual anyway, and it's sort of all in this sort of blue and black visual, but the storytelling is just so emotional, so deep throughout the whole thing. I absolutely adore it, and I think it could possibly be one of my favorite books of all time.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's great. Brilliant. So the next question that crops up, kind of still going down the emotional rabbit hole. What's the scariest or most horrifying comic you've read?
this one definitely was just like a dead set. This one was up there. When I read this book, it gave me nightmares for about 3 weeks after I'd read it. I think it's more to do with the way the character is drawn, but it's My Friend Dahmer by Derf Backderf.
Right.
Now, I don't know if have you ever read My Friend Dahmer?
I haven't read this, but I mean I've read up on it in preparation for this, and yeah, I mean obviously it's a very unique situation.
Yeah,
that the creator has been in.
Yeah,
and obviously it's a very horrifying situation that the friend is, of course, Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killer.
Yeah, exactly.
That he's writing about.
Yeah, it's. Do you know? I wasn't expecting much from this. This was sort of my first forte into Derf's work. I mean, I'm a big fan of Derf now, but because I kind of like his sort of, I like his American Underground sort of style, and that sort of, it's all cartoony and scratchy, and everybody's kind of sort of very elongated, and they look kind of gangly and whatnot. It's the kind of, it can be sort of equated to sort of like Peter Bagg and stuff like that as well. They've all kind of got that gangly sort of look about them.
Right.
But I think with them drawing everybody sort of that more American Underground looking way, it gives a sort of darkness to the character. He captures a darkness in Dahmer that I don't think has been captured just by the stories that you've seen on the news or anything like that, or seen any sort of documentaries or whatever. I first read it whilst also watching, I think it's called the Dahmer Diaries or something. It was on Netflix.
Okay, right.
And that was from like all his neighbours and stuff saying they thought of him. And it's having that sort of outside perspective and then finding out the horrific truth about this person that you've been sort of living beside or, you know, coexisting with in your life. You know, this guy went to school with him, and he basically hung out with him for most of his teen years, and it shows the sort of decay of this person and the deterioration of this man and the inside torment that he's going through. And, you know, his parents being this massive dysfunctional thing that's going on in the background of his life and just giving him this permanent damage. But the way that Derf encapsulates it all and shows that deadness behind his eyes. Yeah. I woke up seeing Dahmer at the end of the bed. Right. It's just horrific. But he does, I mean, that's obviously what he's going for. He's showing you that he's a real person and he did have all this going on, but he's also showing that at the end of the day, he was a serial killer. You know, that's what happened. And the real horror behind it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a horrifying subject, and what a unique position to be in, to have been a friend of a serial killer such as Jeffrey Dahmer, and then being able to write a story about it. That's incredible. But as you say, for the readers, it's a horrifying insight that leads to imagining Dahmer at the edge of your bed.
I do tend to have an over imagination as well, so I think it might just
might have been you.
Yeah,
but still, it's that sort of thing is just it's going to give you a few sleepless nights, I'd say.
Oh, totally. And he's got that wrap up at the end. I mean, everybody knows what happened. You know, everybody knows of who he killed and how he did it and everything. But it shows you that bit at the end where he's working at a newspaper.
Right.
And they're saying, they've caught this guy, blah, blah, blah. And he phones his wife. And his wife is basically saying, it's somebody you went to school with. And he thinks of somebody else first, but the second name out from him is Dahmer, and they say, yeah, that's his name. And it's just him holding the phone, being like, "Oh my God, Jeffrey, what did you do?" And it's just like, soul crushing, because he's thinking to himself, like, we should have seen this. We should have seen this coming. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah.
It's shocking.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, it gave me a few definite sleepless nights, but but there is, I think that's true horror in a comic, which can be very hard to get into a comic book. I've not really found a lot of comic books that I could sort of deem genuinely frightening.
Yeah,
it's something very, very hard to get. I think, I'm saying that, but then Crossed by Garth Ennis is pretty frightening.
Right, yeah. Sure.
But yeah, I think apart from, but that's just purely on a visual scale. That's not like the story of that isn't really frightening. I mean, it's just really, the visual of that is just absolutely terrifying.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, the fact that this all happened, you know, with my friend Dahmer, it makes it more horrifying in a lot of ways, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's not a case of somebody just trying to tell you a scary campfire story in some pages. This is like, you know, this actually happened. This was this guy's life, and this is everything that he experienced whilst growing up with this dude, you know. And then he's sort of filling in the blanks of what he's heard in between, you know. But yeah, you're right. It's. I think it probably does give you that more terrifying angle. The fact that it's all true at the end of the day.
Definitely. Now we're going to move on to a bit more of a positive, lighter note to the question of what's the most meaningful comic to you?
Well, I had to actually really really think about this one,
Mm.
because when I was growing up, comics weren't. I mean, they were accessible to me, obviously. Like I say, Beano, Dandy, Wally, all that kind of jazz. They're all very accessible. But aside from that, there wasn't really anything. Like, we didn't get any of the American comics. We didn't get any like Avengers or Batman or anything like that on the shelves. So a
Right.
lot of my comics had to be kind of. I had to get them through like the library. Um, and in our library, we had a reading corner that was only for 14 plus, and that was basically where they kept all the comics.
Right.
So being younger, I'd kind of sneak in and get in this section and hope nobody noticed. Lucky for me,
Wow.
no teenagers actually ever went to the library, so I could
Bingo.
get there and bother. Yeah. But one of the ones that I think undoubtedly always picked up whilst in the library and sitting on a beanbag as this young impressionable child was the Death of Superman.
Classic. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's quite strange because I think it was probably one of my uh, first iterations of Superman,
As well.
uh,
Right.
and yet I already kind of knew who he was. I don't know if it
Yeah.
was just him being like in the zeitgeist, like he's just always kind of about people wearing t-shirts and
Yeah.
he was on TV as the Lois and Clark Adventures at that point, and obviously, uh, my folks were big fans of the Chris Reeves Superman, so I don't know if I'd maybe just sort of picked him up subconsciously that way.
Mm.
But to then see, the death of Superman, it's like Superman can't be killed. What's this all about?
What?
Yeah, you're lying to me. But yeah, like the death of Superman, like it really. I think any page, if I flicked it now, I instantaneously am transported back to the library, sitting on a beanbag as a
Really?
little kid. It doesn't matter where I am in the book, where I am in the story.
Mm.
We're talking about the trade,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Full trade, right?
yeah, and yeah, it just doesn't matter where I am. I'm still that little kid sitting on that beanbag, reading this thing and getting the smell off of it as well.
That
That's where
comic
it,
smell. Too
yeah.
right, mate.
But that's where it all came from, definitely. The death of Superman, and it just
So
means,
that really kind of cemented you into comics. You think?
yeah, totally. That kind of opened up a bigger world for me as far as comics went. I wasn't just tied to the DC Thompson of it all, you know. Um, I was kind of that kind of opened up the world and showed me superheroes. And the Death of Superman has a Justice League in it that isn't the usual sort of Justice League. It's more your sort of Justice League International characters
Right.
as well. So I got into them before the actual base level Justice League as well. So
Hmm.
yeah, it kind of opened up a lot. And it's got everything in it. It's got an epic fight with Superman. It's got the Justice League. It's got a story of him beating a baddie, but him getting defeated in the process as well. It's
Yeah.
got a lot of gut wrenching moments. It still has Guy Gardner doing funny quips and everything as well, even though it's in dire situations, But yeah, it holds a big space in my heart. I absolutely adore this book.
Amazing. Yeah, it's definitely a good reason to hold up a comic like that. Then also, of course, it's a absolute classic comic that
Yeah,
kind of is in any top 10 comics of all time, probably.
yeah.
Um,
I'm
so
always I'm always surprised with that as well because this kind of era of Superman gets a wee bit berated sometimes. Obviously, I mean, not long after this, he comes back with a mullet, and then you've got the other Superman and stuff like that. And a lot of people are like, "Oh God, it's that era, the '90s era Superman." But I loved it.
Yeah.
This is what I grew up with,
I
man.
mean, they've got to reinvent this whole stuff to be relevant to the time that it's in
Yeah,
as well.
totally.
That's just part and parcel of it.
Yeah.
When I was introduced to Transformers, the first thing that I had ever seen was the Transformers the movie.
Right. Okay.
When Optimus Prime is killed. So that was my initial introduction. Like, I
Yeah.
later found out that people absolutely hated that, but I thought it was amazing. It's like,
Yeah.
this, like, basically the Superman of the Transformers world getting killed, like, in the movie. I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, the stakes are really high here. Anybody could go. It was just an amazing introduction into that. And kind of sounds kind of similar to you with Death of Superman.
Yeah, totally. You're right, man. And seeing the big one, the head being taken down. You're right. That is, anything goes after that. You're right. It's very much a case of like, oh God, if Superman can be killed, if Optimus Prime can be killed, then these guys don't stand a
Who's
chance.
next? Yeah, exactly. I think it's very much George R.R. Martin in that, if you kill your darlings, then you can keep your readers guessing.
Yeah.
Like, it keeps the mystery alive and everything like that. So, it's definitely something that kind of still needs to be kept alive. Is to kill people.
Yeah,
kill characters.
basically. Yeah, they don't kill them off for long. I mean, Superman didn't exactly stay dead for too long, to be honest.
No, of course not.
And I think he's probably been killed off another like 5 times since then or something. But it was big at the time, and I think if I remember rightly, it's the first time he'd actually been like properly killed off, not like encased or he was off world for a wee while or something like that. It was actually he was dead, and by the looks of things he wasn't going to come back, sort of thing. But
but at the time it was quite emotionally shocking, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just kind of, I'm just imagining you in this this library in Dundee on a beanbag, like by yourself, like having snuck into the library like it's Harry Potter or something in your invisibility cloak or something.
Basically,
very cool.
Yeah. It's that's actually pretty apt. Yeah, it was kind of trying to just blend in with this beanbag as much as possible.
Brilliant.
I think I remember kind of if anybody came round, I would just sort of put my backpack in front of me and put the book up at my face and just hope that they didn't notice that it was somebody so young reading it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it just even kind of I'm sitting with it in front of me just now. Even looking at it now, I'm actually like I feel like I'm there, totally sitting immersed in this. And there's so many splash pages at the end of it as well, of just him fighting Doomsday. And oh man, it's fantastic. Absolutely love it.
Epic. So going from one of the most classic comics of all time to the next question, which is what's the most underrated comic?
This one was really difficult to think about, to be honest, because I mean I could have quite easily said like most underrated would be a lot of the stuff in the small press or something like that, but I think small press is doing gangbusters just now. A lot of people know about it, but at the same point, probably only within this sort of inner circle of sort of comics fandom, people sort of know the small press a wee bit more. So I kind of had to dig deep, but I would probably say this one because every time I mention it to anybody, they don't have a clue what it is. And it was actually a cartoon for a wee while and everything as well. But it's the World of Quest by Jason T. Cruz. And it's an all ages comic by I think it's Yen Press. But yeah, it's just like this kind of medieval sort of fantasy of a kid tracking down the reclusive, sort of self-reclusive old hero and having to go on a quest, and the bad guys being on to what the kid is doing and going after them. It's very sort of your basic good guys versus bad guys, and they're on a mission. They've got to get to X area, collect X item, and do X thing, and the day will be saved, kind of thing. I absolutely adore it. The storytelling is a kind of cartoon all in itself,
Right.
but they kind of messed up the cartoon when they did it. Nobody took to it. They changed all the characters entirely.
Oh no!
And
Classic comic adaptation.
yeah,
Where they just change everything, and it's like, well, that's not what the story is, and it's
yeah.
not what the story that people fell in love with. So
I think it's kind of telling as well because it went to Kids WB, and Warner Brothers don't have a good track record of taking sort of name titles and doing good things with them in the past sort of 10 years or so. So, I mean, they're good at the original stuff, but
yeah, sure.
but yeah, they totally changed all the characters completely and just did not do a good adaptation. But there's only 2 volumes of it as well. I think after Jason T. Cruz sold the rights to do the series, he just didn't do any more. He didn't go any further with it. And it's kind of gutting because there was so much more of a story to tell. There was loads more to it, and it could have kept going, but it doesn't go any further. But it's just, in itself, it is a really great all-ages book. It is perfect cartoon style that you know everything that's happening in each panel just by the visuals, which is just perfect, absolutely perfect, and exactly what you need for an all-ages book. But the kind of the action and the fact that this kid is a bit more kind of punchy, he's not some sort of... He's a wee bit of a brat at the start, but you kind of come around to him pretty quickly. Sure. And, you've got the big hulking sort of hero stereotype that he goes to get Quest. It's just absolutely fantastic. And it's just so underrated because it just didn't really get given much of a chance, kind of, which is gutting. But, it was nominated for Harvey's and everything as well. But just never really went anywhere, which is a shame.
Oh, it's a shame.
Yeah.
But yeah, I assume it's still available to buy and things.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's still on Amazon and everything. I'm just hoping that he kind of gets a notion one day to continue on the story.
yeah, and kind of give it some sort of ending or just continue it for a time. Yeah,
totally. But I mean, it was held in pretty high regard from big sort of comics professionals. I mean, the back of it has a pull quote from Keith Giffen, so...
Right, wow. Yeah, so he had all the elements there.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, so maybe one day he'll get back to it, because it sounds like it would be good.
Honestly, I'd be right on it straight away.
Up for it. And I mean, in the world of Kickstarter today, it's the type of thing that, you could put it on like Kickstarter to say that he wants to finish this, but kind of needs the funds to get it finished.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the support would be out there.
Well, I would hope so. But like, if I ever, I've shown it to certain folks, and they really love it. I mean, if you just look at it straight off the bat from the cover of the 2 of them, there's 2 of them, the 2 titular characters, Quest and oh my god, I can't remember the kid's name, Prince Nestor. They're both sort of shouting at each other, and there's loads of goblins and ghouls in the background in the forest. And I mean, just that alone, people are kind of intrigued to have a look, and it's a good striking visual to have on the front of an all-ages book. So it always sparks interest, but nobody's ever seemed to have heard of it, which is just kind of soul-destroying in a way. I absolutely adore it.
No, I'm gonna have to pick up a copy myself, and get into it, and hopefully, one day get my daughter onto it. She's only 20 months at the moment, so it's early days. But
right, okay.
yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, totally, man.
Awesome. So the next question that crops up in the castle is for you. What is the best comic of all time?
Hands down, without a shadow of a doubt, it has got to be Calvin and Hobbes.
Brilliant.
All of Calvin and Hobbes, from start to finish, all 10
Sure.
years, just perfection. Absolute perfection. Um, People always say that they would love Bill Watterson to sort of come out from whatever rock he's hiding behind and make more, but no, it's perfect. It ended so perfectly. The strips themselves are just this absolute perfect encapsulation of childhood and having this sort of, well, imaginary or not imaginary friend and living with you, being that kid with your parents and having to do as you're told, and the parents having their frustration with the kid, and it's just absolute perfection. I absolutely adore Calvin and Hobbes, and it is usually the first thing I tell anybody to read if
Yeah.
if they're looking for comics in general. I mean, you can just smash out a strip, no bother, and it's you get you usually get the feel of the whole of uh, the series of strips just with one 4-panel strip, but it's just absolutely amazing. I adore it, and it's something that I read every single day because they've got a Calvin and Hobbes Twitter feed
Oh,
that
right.
that puts up. I think it either puts up one or two, depending on if they've missed the day. But they tend to put them up sort of daily. But there's two of them that run. There's one that puts it up, and then there's one that puts it up with like a link to a website where you can get more of them. But yeah,
Right.
it is something that I genuinely read every single day. I wouldn't be without my daily hit of Calvin and Hobbes.
That is excellent. Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's an absolute classic, Calvin and Hobbes, and yeah, that's. I didn't know about the Twitter accounts there. So the entry, the barrier for entry is very, very low in terms of that. You can just go read
Yeah,
it on Twitter, basically.
yeah, exactly. And
And if you really enjoy it, go buy the book.
yeah, exactly. And I think they kind of stick to the same kind of format of like they'll put out a 4 strip and then they'll put out a Sunday full color strip as well on a Sunday,
Right.
which is just it's brilliant. So accessible, but yeah, it's just sheer perfection. Calvin and Hobbes.
Superb. Enough said. Straight up. And so from your list of comics, which one of those comics, if you had to choose one, would be the only one that you'd take into the apocalypse?
If I was having to make a dash, if it
Yeah.
was one I was going to have to shove into the backpack, and it was going to give me a hint of any sort of good times and a reminiscent, it's going to have to be the death of Superman.
Brilliant.
Going to have to be. I mean, I get everything out of it. I get the full color. I get soups. I get the whole JLA or JLI, depending on what iteration you want. I get
Right.
action, adventure. I get DC, which I love. I get the smell, everything. Like I say, I get transported back to being on that beanbag, so I can just think of happier times as I'm listening to people being eaten to death outside.
It's not happening. It's not happening.
Basically.
Excellent. That is a fantastic answer, Tom. Brilliant. And along with your copy of The Death of Superman, what weapon, tool, or useful item are you going to take with you?
Now I was thinking about this, like what is going to be the most handy thing to take out zombies and to use as a sort of useful tool, and I kind of went for one of those foldable spades that the army use.
Right.
It'd probably be one of them with one of the sides sharpened, So it's
Nice.
a effective zombie decapitator, but also if I'm out and about and nature calls, I can dig a wee hole and there we go.
Bingo, got it all. Yeah, I think you can get they're like spade saws. So like
Yeah.
one of the edges is like serrated and everything.
Well,
So
I've got a lot of spare time whilst I'm avoiding the zombies. I can sharpen it against a wall. It's not too bad.
yeah, there you go. All good. That is awesome.
And I can use it as a wee ladder as well if I can't get something.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, best of luck to you with your copy of Death of Superman and your spade saw. Um, all the best for you there. And thank you for sharing all of your comic choices today.
Thank you, dude. I'm always happy to chat comics. I can rattle on forever. So I'm glad I got an opportunity. And thank you so much for having me on, man. It's very good of you.
Ah, it's a real pleasure, mate. It was really really nice. And for the listeners, one more time, where can they find you?
They can find us on Twitter and Instagram at That Comic Smell. We are on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify, and most other places that you can get podcasts. And you can just Google That Comic Smell.
Excellent. And then, do you have anything else coming up this year apart from the podcast?
Well, we were discussing the other day that we might try and make it to a couple of conventions just as punters,
Great.
just sort of wandering about, but
Yeah.
to get all of us together and try and get to a couple of conventions. And now I think there's been some announcements as far as like the thought bubble and dates and whatnot. I think we'll probably sit down and get it all planned out, but it would be good to get out and get amongst the crowds. I mean, we're always up for going to a convention anyway. I mean, I think David's going to be tabling at Dunfermline, so I'll be going along to Dunfermline as well and seeing everybody, and hopefully buying as many books as possible.
Fantastic.
But yeah, it's just mainly sort of getting out to conventions and then battering on with the podcast as much as we can.
Brilliant. So yeah, hopefully I'll get to see you in the Thought Bubble. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. So let me know if you guys do make it, because yeah, it'd be good to connect face to face.
Yeah, totally, buddy. Well, hopefully we will. So hopefully I'll give you a shout and we'll let you know.
Sweet as. Keep me posted. Well, Tom Stewart, thank you again so much for your time today, and for sharing your comics for the Apocalypse. And yeah, I hope to see you in November in Thought Bubble.
Yeah, you too, buddy. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Take care, mate. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks again to Tom for being on Comics for the Apocalypse. It was absolutely delightful. If you enjoyed the show today, please leave a review for us on iTunes or whichever podcast service you use, as not only will it let me know that you liked it, but I believe that it helps others aware of the show as well. If you'd like to check out Tom's work or follow him on social media, those links are in the show notes, along with all of our own links to the various areas of the internet. And finally, as long as the apocalypse doesn't come to pass in the next week, I'll see you next Monday. Bye for now.